I saw the words, proprietary development, exclusive company ownership, stamped on my patent application, right next to tech I'd built at 3 a.m. in my apartment on gear I'd paid for myself. They thought I'd fold. Instead, I pulled a faded 2013 contract from my filing cabinet and smiled. One overlooked paragraph. One clause my attorney never missed. Today I'm walking into that boardroom like I'm holding a bomb they never saw coming. I'm Olivia Carter, 36, lead systems architect at Velora Innovations, until Justin Wade bought the company. One morning we were building life-saving surgical robots. By afternoon we were owned by Wade Industries, a conglomerate that devours startups and spits out the bones. Wade showed up in a suit worth more than my rent, flashing a smile that never reached his eyes. At the mandatory meeting he announced, "All patents developed during your tenure now belong to Wade Industries. Corporate speak for, we're stealing everything you made." The engineers looked defeated. I felt ice-cold clarity. Because the Neural Precision System, my AI, my 3 a.m. sketches, my freelance-funded prototypes, my solo-patented breakthrough, wasn't theirs. It never was. While Wade droned on about synergies, I texted my attorney, "Check paragraph 6 immediately." She replied in 90 seconds, "Already reviewing. They have no idea what's coming." Later I approached him. "That Neural Precision System," he said, "is exactly what we need to showcase." "It took 3 years to perfect," I said. "Good. It'll take Velora to the next level." "Oh, it will," I replied. "Just not the way you're anticipating." He didn't get it, because men like him assume employment means ownership. They assume engineers don't read contracts. They assume wrong. Back at my desk I opened my 2013 agreement and found it. Page 6, Section 4, Subsection B. Any inventions developed outside standard hours, using personal resources and equipment, without company facilities, shall remain the sole property of the employee. 9 years of foresight, one sleeping viper of a clause. And Wade never even glanced at it. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. I remembered the day I'd negotiated that clause. October 2013. Fresh out of Stanford with my master's degree, eager but far from naive. The HR director had actually chuckled when I'd requested the addition. "Planning to invent the next breakthrough in your spare time?" he joked, barely scanning the modification. "Something along those lines," I'd replied calmly. They'd signed without hesitation. Why wouldn't they? I was just another engineer and they were Velora Innovations, a company that assumed innovation only happened during business hours on company equipment within company walls. Elena Wright had immediately understood the value of that paragraph when I'd hired her 2 years ago to review my patents. "You realize this is essentially a golden ticket, right?" she'd said, studying my employment agreement. "Most tech company contracts claim everything you even think about near the office. This clause is beautifully crafted." Now, as Wade plotted to absorb my Neural Precision System into his corporate empire, that beautiful clause was about to become his nightmare. I opened my personal laptop, the one that had never connected to Velora's network, and pulled up my development logs. Every breakthrough meticulously documented. Timestamps showing work done at 11:47 p.m., 2:33 a.m., 5:12 a.m. Photographs of my apartment workspace. Receipts for equipment purchased with my personal credit card. Even video recordings of early prototype failures on my kitchen counter. The irony was delicious. Velora had benefited enormously from my innovation. I'd integrated the Neural Precision System into their surgical robotics platform, improved their accuracy metrics by 340%, and potentially saved them millions in liability concerns. But I'd been meticulous, so incredibly meticulous, about maintaining the separation between my invention and their employment. My phone buzzed. Elena calling this time. "Just finished reviewing everything," she said without preamble. "Your documentation is absolutely airtight. When were you planning to inform them?" "I wasn't," I replied, watching through my office window as Wade moved through the engineering department like a shark circling prey. "I'll let them make the first move. They'll announce the patent consolidation formally, probably claim it's already finalized. That's when we strike." "That's cold, Olivia," Elena said, and I could hear the approval in her voice. "I like it. What about protective measures?" "Already handled," I said, opening another drawer to reveal incorporation documents. Carter Precision LLC established last week. The patent transfer paperwork is ready to file the moment they attempt to claim ownership. You've thought of everything. Not everything, I admitted. Just enough. We spent the next 40 minutes strategizing. Elena would prepare cease and desist letters ready to deploy instantly. I would continue documenting any attempts by Valora to claim my work. We'd wait for them to overreach and they would. Men like Wade always did. The beauty of paragraph 6 wasn't just what it said, but what it represented. In their hunger for acquisition, in their rush to consume companies and claim assets, corporations like Wade Industries never conducted proper due diligence on decade-old employment contracts. They assumed standardization. They assumed conformity. They assumed employees from years ago hadn't thought to protect themselves. But I had. Because even at 27, fresh from graduate school, I'd understood a fundamental truth. The only person who truly values your work is you. Companies will celebrate your innovation while planning to profit from it. They'll call you family while drafting restructuring plans. They'll praise you publicly while claiming your ideas privately. That's why paragraph 6 existed. Not because I'd predicted this exact scenario, but because I'd known that eventually, someone would try to take what I'd built with my own hands in my own time, using my own resources and vision. The Neural Precision System represented 3 years of sleepless nights. 3 years of failed prototypes, burned circuit boards, and algorithms that refused to converge. 3 years of my life poured into machine learning models that could prevent surgical errors. And now Justin Wade thought he could sign a document and own all of that. I closed the folder and secured it back in my drawer. Outside my office, Valora hummed with anxious energy. Employees whispered about restructuring, about what consolidation really meant, about who would survive Wade's transition period. They didn't know that the real restructuring hadn't even begun yet. I pulled up the Neural Precision System's core architecture on my screen. The actual version, not the simplified implementation Valora used. Hidden deep in the code were authentication protocols that nobody else knew existed. A verification system elegantly designed that would prove essential very soon. When the time came, and it would come soon, Wade would learn that stealing intellectual property required more than corporate presentations and intimidation tactics. It required actual legal ownership. And thanks to paragraph 6, that was the one thing he'd never possess. The evidence gathering began that same evening. I transformed my apartment into what Elena jokingly called the war room. Every available surface covered with documentation that would prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the Neural Precision System was mine and mine alone. First, the audio recordings. I'd been paranoid enough to record every late-night testing session on my phone. Hours upon hours of my voice, exhausted and frustrated, muttering about servo calibration tolerances and neural network convergence rates. Timestamps clearly showing 2:47 a.m., 4:23 a.m., sometimes stretching until sunrise. Background sounds of my coffee maker, my neighbor's dog barking, the garbage trucks that rumbled through my neighborhood at 5:30 a.m. Every detail proved this work happened in my space on my time. Next came the receipts. Electronic suppliers for specialized components. Online orders for custom sensors. That expensive oscilloscope I'd purchased with my tax refund in 2020. Every single transaction paid from my personal accounts, delivered to my residential address. I'd even kept the shipping boxes with labels bearing my name, not Valora Innovations. The sketches were my favorite piece of evidence. Late-night diner sessions where inspiration struck between bites of cold pie and refills of terrible coffee. Graph paper covered in circuit diagrams and mathematical proofs, some stained with coffee rings, others smudged from exhaustion. The waitress at Morrison's Diner would probably remember me, the engineer who occupied the corner booth from midnight to dawn, surrounded by papers and empty mugs. But the crown jewel was my development journal. A thick notebook where I documented every breakthrough, every failure, every moment of clarity. Handwritten entries, dated and time-stamped. Some pages wrinkled where coffee had spilled, others barely legible from exhaustion and excitement. No corporate engineer would maintain such personal, messy records for company work. This was the journal of someone building something transformative in their apartment, not their office cubicle. Elena arrived at 9:30 p.m. with Thai food and a briefcase full of legal documents. You weren't exaggerating about the documentation, she said, surveying my organized chaos. This is remarkably comprehensive. Had to be, I replied, showing her the external hard drive. This contains the entire codebase. 47 versions, each with cryptographic timestamps from a third-party verification service. Immutable proof of exactly when each function was written. She whistled softly. You blockchain verified your code? Every significant commit. Been paying for distributed ledger verification since 2019. Seemed excessive at the time. Excessive or brilliant? She opened her laptop. Let's formalize the transfer to Carter Precision LLC. I've drafted the paperwork. We'll backdate it to last week, which is completely legal since you're transferring your own property to your own company. We worked through the night, constructing an impenetrable legal fortress around my creation. Every document notarized, every transfer recorded, every piece of evidence cataloged and cross-referenced with obsessive precision. By the time dawn broke over the city, Carter Precision LLC officially owned complete and exclusive rights to the neural precision system. Tao what? Elena asked, exhausted but energized by caffeine and adrenaline. How we wait, I said, watching the sunrise paint my apartment walls gold. Wade will make his move soon. He has to. The investor presentation is in 3 weeks. He'll want to showcase his impressive patent portfolio. And when he does? Elena smiled, already knowing the answer. When he does, I replied, thinking of the 19 contracts Velora had signed with major hospital systems, every single one containing clauses about valid patent ownership. We remind him that he should have read the employment agreements more carefully. Over the following days I maintained perfect normalcy at work. Attended meetings, submitted reports, even complimented Wade on his strategic vision during a department briefing. All while knowing that Carter Precision LLC sat like a legal landmine beneath his feet, waiting for him to take that fatal step. The paranoia that had driven me to document everything, to timestamp every breakthrough, to maintain that careful separation between my personal work and company employment, it had all been for this moment. Not because I'd predicted Wade specifically, but because I'd understood that innovation makes you a target. That companies would always try to claim what their employees created, regardless of when, where, or how. Elena texted me updates as she filed preliminary paperwork with the patent office, ensuring Carter Precision's ownership was officially documented. She also prepared something special. A detailed timeline demonstrating how the neural precision system couldn't possibly qualify as work for hire under any interpretation of intellectual property law. You know what's beautiful about this? She said during one planning session. They probably have an entire legal team reviewing standard employment contracts. But nobody checks the old ones. Nobody assumes a junior engineer from 2013 negotiated custom terms. He was absolutely right. In all his corporate maneuvering, Wade had made the classic mistake of assuming everyone played by identical rules. He'd walked into Velora seeing assets to be claimed, never bothering to verify those assets were actually available for claiming. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Executive review meeting, 3 p.m. This would be it. Wade had scheduled individual meetings with senior engineers. He'd make his play then, probably with carefully worded documents about clarifying patent assignments and aligning IP ownership. I gathered my files, verified my phone's recording app was ready, and prepared for battle. They thought they owned my nights, my sleepless hours, my moments of brilliance born from exhaustion and determination. They were about to learn otherwise. The executive conference room smelled of leather and ambition. Wade sat at the head of an imposing table, flanked by Amanda Kemp from Human Resources and someone I didn't recognize. Probably legal counsel, judging by the expensive suit and calculating expression. Olivia, thanks for joining us, Wade began, gesturing toward a chair positioned across from them. The setup was deliberate. 3 against 1, corporate intimidation 101. I sat down calmly, placing my phone face up on the table. The recording app blinked silently, capturing everything. Let's be direct, Wade said, sliding a folder across the polished surface. We're finalizing the intellectual property consolidation. This is essentially a formality, clarifying that all patents developed during your employment belong to Velora Innovations and its parent entity, Wade Industries. I opened the folder slowly, scanning the dense legal text. There it was, buried in Section 3. Employee acknowledges that all intellectual property, whether developed during business hours or personal time, utilizing any knowledge gained through employment, shall be assigned to Wade Industries. Comprehensive, I murmured. Standard procedure, the lawyer, Andrews, according to his business card, interjected. Same agreement every senior engineer is signing. Simply confirms what's already in your employment contract. I looked up, meeting Wade's eyes directly. Actually, it doesn't. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Excuse me. Wade's smile tightened imperceptibly. This document assumes my employment contract contains standard IP assignment clauses. It doesn't. Amanda shuffled through papers. That's impossible. All our contracts. All your contracts from 2014 onward, I corrected. I was hired in 2013. Different template, different terms. Andrews leaned forward. Even so, work-for-hire doctrine clearly establishes that work performed during employment using company resources belongs to the employer. True, I agreed. Key phrases being, during employment, and company resources. The neural precision system was developed after hours, using my own equipment in my own apartment. Wade's expression shifted from confident to confused to quietly furious within seconds. That's a technicality. No, that's intellectual property law. I pulled out my phone, sending a pre-written text to Elena. They made their move. Proceed. Let's be reasonable, Wade tried, switching to his smooth negotiator voice. You've been well compensated for your work. Stock options, bonuses. For my employment, I interrupted. Not for my independent innovations. I integrated that system into your platform under an implied licensing agreement, witnessed by the entire engineering team during the 2021 implementation meeting. I believe someone even joked that Olivia's letting us use her baby. Andrews was frantically typing on his laptop, probably searching for legal precedents. Amanda looked like she'd bitten into something rotten. But Wade's carefully constructed mask had finally cracked, revealing the cold calculation beneath. What exactly do you want? He asked quietly. Nothing. I want nothing from you. I stood up, leaving the unsigned document on the table. My attorney will contact you regarding proper licensing agreements moving forward. Licensing agreements? Amanda sputtered. For Valora's continued use of my neural precision system. Or would you prefer I invoke my rights as the patent holder and revoke access entirely? The implications hit them like a physical blow. 19 active contracts with major hospital systems. Millions in projected revenue. All dependent on technology they just discovered they didn't actually own. You can't do this, Amanda managed. You've been using company time to maintain that system. Wrong. I've been using company time to maintain Valora's implementation of my system. There's a significant difference. My attorney has timesheets documenting every hour spent on company work versus personal development. Separated down to the minute. I reached the door before Wade spoke again, his voice barely controlled. You planned this. I turned back. No, I prepared for this. When you've been in this industry long enough, you learn to distinguish between companies that value innovation and companies that simply acquire it. I think we both know which category Wade Industries falls into. We'll sue. Please do. Discovery will be fascinating, especially when the court examines how you attempted to retroactively claim ownership of pre-existing patents. I opened the door. Oh, and Justin, you might want to review those 19 hospital contracts. I believe there's a clause about patent authenticity. Something about immediate termination if licensing isn't properly maintained. I left them in stunned silence, walking back to my office with measured steps. Only after closing the door did I allow myself a moment of satisfaction. My hands trembled slightly as I called Elena. How'd it go? She answered immediately. Exactly as predicted. They attempted the standard assignment maneuver. I declined. Wade's probably having Andrews dissect my employment contract right now. Let them. Judge Morrison is on standby if they try anything aggressive. They will, I said, looking out at the office floor. Desperate executives always do. Then we'd better be ready. I'm sending the formal license termination notice in 45 minutes. That gives them time to understand what's happening, but not enough to prevent it. Perfect. I began packing my personal items. Photographs, my favorite coffee mug, the small succulent that had outlived 2 CEOs. I'd be leaving the building soon. They'd probably try to escort me out once they understood the situation. Security theater wouldn't change the patent filing, but it would make them feel like they'd taken action. You ready for what comes next? Elena asked. I thought about the authentication protocols embedded in the neural precision system. The verification sequences that would lock out unauthorized users. The chaos that would ensue when 19 hospital systems discovered their surgical robotics had gone dark. I've been ready for 9 years, I said. Time to see if they've been paying attention. The next morning, Elena walked into Velora's executive conference room like she owned the building. I wasn't there. They'd had security escort me out the previous evening, but she live-streamed the entire meeting to my phone. Modern technology is wonderful that way. The room was packed. Wade, Andrews, Amanda, and what appeared to be half their legal department. They'd clearly worked through the night. Papers covered the table, laptops hummed with frantic research, and several people had the hollow-eyed look of lawyers who'd mainlined espresso instead of sleeping. Gentlemen, ladies, Elena began, setting her briefcase down with deliberate precision. I represent Carter Precision LLC and its proprietor Olivia Carter, regarding patent US 11392847, the neural precision system currently implemented across your entire surgical robotics platform. Andrews jumped in immediately. We've reviewed Ms. Carter's employment contract. While there is an unusual clause regarding personal time development, the integration of this system into Velora's infrastructure clearly demonstrates. Nothing, Elena interrupted smoothly. It demonstrates that my client licensed her technology to Velora. She did so informally as a courtesy because she believed in the company's mission. That courtesy ends today. She distributed documents around the table. I zoomed in on my phone, catching glimpses. Formal termination of licensing rights, cease and desist orders, patent documentation with my name prominently displayed. This is extortion, Wade said, his voice dangerously quiet. This is property law, Elena corrected. Your contracts with hospitals specifically require that all technology be properly licensed. Section 8.2.1 if memory serves. Failure to maintain proper licensing constitutes grounds for immediate contract termination. The color drained from Amanda's face. She knew those contracts intimately. She'd probably celebrated when they were signed. What are your terms? Andrews asked, ever pragmatic. Elena smiled. Market rate plus 40% for licensing. Annual payments, not monthly. Non-transferable, meaning you cannot sublicense. And, she paused for effect, removal of Justin Wade's name from any documentation related to the neural precision system. That's absurd, Wade exploded. I've been promoting this technology to investors. Then you've been misrepresenting patent ownership, Elena said calmly. The SEC tends to investigate that sort of thing, particularly when public statements contradict patent office records. She pulled out her tablet, displaying a countdown timer. You have 48 hours to respond. After that, Carter Precision will exercise its rights as patent holder. The system will be deactivated remotely, and you'll need to explain to 19 hospital administrators why their surgical robotics suddenly stopped functioning. You can't remotely deactivate, Andrews started. Authentication protocols built into the core architecture. My client was extraordinarily thorough. Every system verifies licensing status. No valid license, no functionality. Completely legal and documented in the technical specifications your engineers never bothered to read completely. I watched Wade's face cycle through emotions. Rage, disbelief, calculation, and finally the dawning realization that he'd been completely outmaneuvered by someone he'd dismissed as merely an engineer. Get out, he said quietly. 48 hours, Elena repeated, gathering her materials. Oh, and you should check the authentication server logs. They've been recording every instance of unlicensed usage for the past 24 hours. That's potentially millions in statutory damages. She left them in chaos. Andrews was already on his phone, probably calling outside counsel. Amanda typed frantically, likely drafting emergency communications. Others clustered around laptops, desperately searching for loopholes that simply didn't exist. And Wade sat perfectly still, staring at the patent documentation like it might spontaneously combust through sheer force of will. My phone rang immediately. Elena, fresh from her victory. "That was magnificent," I said. "That was just the opening move. They'll try to negotiate now. Probably offer you millions to sign everything over permanently. Not interested. They'll threaten to blacklist you from the industry, destroy your career. Carter Precision already has 4 potential clients interested in licensing. Turns out hospital systems want surgical robotics from someone who actually invented the technology. Speaking of which," Elena's voice carried a hint of mischief, "I may have accidentally left my tablet recording when I exited. Want to hear them panic?" I listened to 5 minutes of corporate catastrophe. Engineers being summoned to find workarounds that didn't exist. Accountants calculating the cost of contract breaches. Wade demanding solutions from people who just discovered their flagship technology was never actually theirs. "The authentication is hard-coded into the kernel," one engineer explained nervously. "We'd need to rebuild everything from scratch. That's minimum 18 months, and we'd lose all the accumulated machine learning data." "I don't want problems, I want solutions," Wade snapped, his composure completely shattered. "There is one solution," another voice suggested quietly. "We could pay her what she's asking." The silence that followed was deafening. I stopped the recording. In 48 hours they'd either meet my terms or watch their company's valuation collapse. Either way, paragraph 6 had done its job. The clause they'd laughed at 9 years ago had become their corporate nightmare. All because they'd assumed a junior engineer couldn't possibly protect herself. Assumptions, I reflected, were extraordinarily expensive things. The first domino fell at Riverside Medical Center. Their chief operations officer called me directly at 7:30 a.m., completely bypassing Velora. "Miss Carter, this is Dr. Raymond Park. We've just received concerning documentation regarding patent ownership of our surgical robotics systems." I was sitting in my new office, a modern space in a building exactly 1 block from Velora's headquarters, close enough to observe the chaos, far enough to avoid the blast radius. "Dr. Park," I said, turning toward the window. "I assume you're calling about the licensing situation." "Licensing situation?" His voice cracked. "We have a $60 million surgical center running on your neural precision system. Are you telling me Velora doesn't own the technology?" "I'm afraid not. I've provided them with 48 hours to negotiate proper licensing terms. After that, I let the silence speak for itself. This is unacceptable. Our contract specifically states that all technology must be properly licensed under penalty of immediate termination." "Perhaps you should discuss that with Mr. Wade," I suggested calmly. The call ended abruptly. Through my window I could see Velora's building. Somewhere in there phones were beginning to ring with increasing urgency. By noon the avalanche had begun in earnest. Hospital administrators threatening to pull out. Medical device regulators demanding emergency documentation. A Department of Defense contractor, they used modified versions for military field hospitals, sent a formal inquiry that probably had Wade's legal team reaching for antacids. Elena texted me updates between meetings. Financial press caught wind. Stock down 15% in morning trading. I pulled up the news feeds. Someone had leaked the story. Probably a disgruntled Velora employee watching their stock options evaporate. Breaking: Velora Innovations may not own core patent for flagship surgical robotics. CEO Justin Wade accused of IP misappropriation. Investors demanding answers. My phone rang. Unknown number. Olivia. A familiar voice. Christine Lambert, my former project manager. "What's happening?" "Wade just locked down the entire engineering department. Nobody can access the neural precision repositories. He's probably trying to prevent information leaks. Too late for that." "Is it true you own the entire system? Every line of code, every algorithm, every innovation?" She whistled softly. "Holy. You know what this means. Without the neural precision system we're just another robotics company. Nothing special, nothing worth the premium Wade paid." "I know." "Good." Her voice turned fierce. "After what they tried to pull, they deserve everything coming to them." The sentiment was spreading rapidly. Elena forwarded me screenshots from anonymous employee message boards. Engineers who'd watched corporations consume innovations for years were cheering for the underdog. Someone had created a meme, Wade's face photoshopped onto a sinking ship labeled SS Patent Theft, heading straight toward an iceberg marked Paragraph 6. At 2:45 p.m., an emergency board meeting was convened. I knew because 4 different insiders texted me simultaneously. The board had just discovered that their new CEO's first major initiative might crater the company's valuation by 40%. Then came the revelation that made everything even sweeter. Elena called, barely containing her laughter. "You won't believe this. I just spoke with a Wall Street Journal reporter. Apparently, Wade's been showcasing the Neural Precision System to investors as his flagship innovation. He's been taking personal credit in every interview, every investor pitch deck. Fraud at minimum. Misrepresentation to investors. The SEC is definitely going to investigate. But here's the best part. One of those investors is Lawrence Sterling. I knew that name intimately. Everyone in tech did. Sterling had a well-documented reputation for absolutely destroying executives who lied to him. How long before? He's already initiated an emergency audit. Wade's about to learn what happens when you sell someone else's work to a billionaire with unlimited legal resources. Pressure was mounting from every conceivable angle. Clients demanding explanations. Investors smelling blood. Employees abandoning ship. And at the center of it all, Justin Wade, the man who'd walked into Valora believing he could simply take whatever he wanted. My phone buzzed. An email from Andrews, marked urgent and confidential. Ms. Carter, in the interest of expedited resolution, Mr. Wade is prepared to offer you $3 million for complete patent assignment. I forwarded it to Elena with 2 words, absolutely not. The response came within minutes. $7 million then. Plus a board position. Another message, $10 million. Final offer. Name your price. I crafted my response with surgical precision. Mr. Andrews, there is no price. Carter Precision will license the technology under the terms already presented. Market rate plus 40%, annual payments, Mr. Wade's name removed from all documentation. These terms are non-negotiable. The 48-hour deadline stands. The countdown approached like an incoming storm. I'd given them Thursday and Friday to scramble desperately. Now, as Saturday dawn approached, the authentication servers waited for my command. I opened my laptop and accessed the administrative panel. Every Valora system running my Neural Precision technology showed as active. Green indicators across 19 installations, humming along normally, unaware they were seconds away from darkness. Elena texted, 15 minutes to deadline. They're still in emergency session. I waited, my finger hovering over the kill switch. Not from cruelty but necessity. They needed to understand that innovation couldn't be stolen simply because you wore expensive suits and signed acquisition papers. At 5:57 a.m. my phone rang. Andrews sounding absolutely exhausted. Miss Carter. We accept your terms. Saturday morning arrived with surgical precision. 8:58 a.m. and I was sitting in my office, watching the authentication dashboard on one monitor and Valora's stock price on another. Everything was positioned perfectly. Elena stood behind me, phone in hand. Ready. Send it. She tapped her screen. Done. License termination notice delivered to all 19 clients simultaneously. 9 a.m. exactly. I entered the command sequence I'd memorized years ago, my fingers moving with practiced certainty. A simple string of characters that would flip every Neural Precision system from green to red. The dashboard illuminated like a disaster map. One by one, systems began failing authentication. Riverside Medical offline. Presbyterian Hospital offline. Walter Reed offline. 19 installations across 4 continents, suddenly dead in the water. My phone exploded with notifications. So did Elena's. But we ignored them all, watching the cascade of failures with clinical detachment. How long before, Elena started. My office door burst open. 2 Valora security guards stood there looking confused and embarrassed. Ma'am, we've been asked to escort you. The lead guard paused. Wait, you don't work here anymore. This isn't even our building. No, I agreed. This is Carter Precision headquarters. You're probably looking for my former office. They exchanged glances and retreated quickly. Through my window I could see Valora's building. Even from here the chaos was visible. People rushing between floors, clusters forming at windows, the universal body language of corporate panic. Social media had already picked up the story. Valora down was trending within minutes. Hospital administrators posting photos of dead screens, surgical department heads demanding explanations. One particularly memorable image showed a multi-million-dollar operating theater frozen mid-calibration captioned, "When you forget to read the employment contracts." Elena's phone rang. She answered on speaker. "Ms. Wright." Andrew sounded like he'd aged 20 years overnight. "We agreed to your terms." This is exactly what we discussed," Elena interrupted smoothly. "You agree to terms at 5:57 a.m. Saturday. The formal licensing agreement clearly states that service resumes upon receipt of the first annual payment and completion of all documentation changes. We're prepared to wire the funds immediately." "Excellent. I'll also need confirmation that Mr. Wade's name has been removed from all patent documentation, marketing materials and technical specifications." Silence. "That's going to require. Then I suggest you work quickly. Every minute of downtime is costing your clients approximately." Elena made a show of checking her notes. $4.2 million in lost surgical capacity. She ended the call and high-fived me. God, that felt incredible. The next hour was a masterclass in corporate humiliation. Valora's PR team tried spinning it as a technical glitch, then scheduled maintenance, before finally admitting to licensing reconciliation procedures. But the truth was already public knowledge. Every tech blog, industry newsletter, and business reporter knew exactly what had transpired. Justin Wade, the CEO who tried to steal an engineer's patent, had just cost his company millions in a single morning. By 11:15 a.m., screenshots started circulating. Internal emails where Wade had claimed credit for the neural precision system. Presentation slides with his name prominently displayed next to my innovations. A particularly damning video from an investor conference where he described his vision for technology I'd built in my apartment. Then came the notification I'd been anticipating. "Wire transfer confirmed," Elena announced. $12.7 million. First year's licensing fee for all 19 installations. She refreshed her email. "And Wade's name, legal just sent confirmation. Every document has been updated. He's been completely erased from the patent history." I turned back to my authentication dashboard. Time to restore the systems. One by one I brought each installation back online. Riverside Medical first, they'd been courteous throughout. Presbyterian Hospital next. Down the list, each system coming back with a cheerful confirmation ping. 15 minutes later, everything was operational again. The crisis had passed, but the scars would remain permanently. Valora's reputation was shattered. Their stock price had dropped 22%. And Justin Wade's name was toxic in every boardroom from Silicon Valley to Wall Street. Christine texted me, "Just watched Wade get escorted out by security. Board fired him effective immediately." I felt no satisfaction in his downfall. That had never been the objective. The objective was the 8-figure licensing fee that would fund Carter Precision's expansion. The objective was the message sent to every corporate raider who thought they could claim an engineer's midnight innovations. The objective was paragraph 6. Elena poured 2 glasses of champagne from the bottle she'd been saving. "To proper documentation," she toasted. "To reading the fine print," I countered. We clinked glasses, watching the city skyline where Valora's building stood slightly diminished in the morning light. Somewhere in that tower, lawyers were explaining to a shell-shocked board how a single paragraph from 2013 had cost them their CO and nearly destroyed their company. My computer chimed with a new email, this time from Sterling Medical Technologies. "Ms. Carter, I understand you're now independently licensing your neural precision system. We'd be extremely interested in discussing implementation for our European facilities. Also, I apologize for any distress my prior dealings with Mr. Wade may have caused. I assure you all future negotiations will be conducted with proper respect for intellectual property rights." I smiled. The market had already adapted. The predators had learned that this particular prey had teeth and legal documentation. "What now?" Elena asked. I pulled up the dashboard one final time. 19 green lights, each representing a system that now operated on my terms, under my control, bearing my name exclusively. Now we build something even better. Something they can't steal. Outside, Velora's logo still gleamed in the morning sun. But everyone in the industry now knew the truth. The real power hadn't been in their boardroom or their acquisition strategies. It had all begun in a studio apartment at 2:30 a.m., in the hands of an engineer who knew to protect what she created. The fallout at Velora was swift. Emergency board meetings, executive firings, a forensic audit. But I didn't gloat. Carter Precision had become real overnight. My phone flooded with partnership offers from CEOs and VCs who'd once ignored me. Their money was still good even if their ethics weren't. By Wednesday, moving trucks lined Velora's loading dock. Elena handed me a sealed envelope. Final confirmation that Wade's name had been purged from all patent records. Inside was also a hollow apology from the board, worded to admit no fault. I shredded it without reading past the first line. If they'd just asked, I said, I might have given them fair terms. But they didn't ask, Elena replied. They tried to take. Exactly. Another licensing inquiry chimed in, this time from Japan. The neural precision system was going global, and now every contract bore my name clearly. Developed by Olivia Carter. That night, I returned to my apartment and opened my old development journal, coffee-stained pages filled with 3 a.m. breakthroughs. One entry stood out. Someone will try to claim this someday. Be prepared. My phone buzzed. Christine inviting me out to celebrate. I declined. This was never about celebration. It was about work. I brewed the same cheap coffee I'd lived on during those late nights, sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. On my second monitor, the authentication dashboard glowed. All green. 19 systems running smoothly, saving lives, generating revenue. On my terms. All because of paragraph 6. All because a 27-year-old engineer had insisted on one small clause no one thought mattered. Until it did. Justin Wade had walked in assuming he could take whatever he wanted. He left erased. The board paid $12.7 million to learn the cost of skipping due diligence. And the industry? They'd watched a corporate predator get outmaneuvered by someone who documented everything. I raised my mug in a silent toast to my younger self. The one who knew ideas are only yours if you fight to keep them. Then I turned a new page in my journal and wrote, Carter Precision LC, Day 1. Next innovation begins now. And I got back to work.